So Patrick is a very special person. Why? I've been doing entrepreneurship trainings for several years, and one of the tools that we've used, even in the programs in universities, for developing business ideas is a business model canvas. This is one page where you get an overview of what are the components of my business. This model was kind of popularized and taken to 5 million people around the world because of this very person who will take the stage. We know that Alexander Osterwalder was the person who created that, but without Patrick, this probably would have never made the reach as it did. This model is something that has been used by many startups, many entrepreneurs, many students. I can't tell any other model that has been so influential for the business world and so widely used. And our next speaker to take on the stage will take us on this journey. His journey began, he was working before in a consulting business, and it was really, one thing bothered him, was that in consulting business, you usually have like 50 slides or 100 slides or like 50 pages of text, and it's hard to understand how these components are connected. Or in organizations, you often have this department does their brainstorming session, and the other department does their brainstorming session, and then we somehow try to put it together. What Patrick was missing was, is there one solution that could have all these important components on one page? Why? Because when we see everything in one picture, we will be able to create connections. We will be able to get people to collaborate on that one picture. We will be able to do something that is widely missing in very large organizations nowadays, where people are in silos, doing their own thing, trying to figure out the innovation. But this tool is bringing it all together. And as times change, so does the way of interacting. And now Patrick has moved to this kind of next digital level, which is using the tool called Miro. Miro enables to create massive boards that we can digitally work together. We don't have to fly together to put Post-its. We can actually have a big image. We can understand how things are connected. And I think that's the key to make innovation part of everyone. So that innovation wouldn't be, oh, we have this one person, innovation manager in our company. He knows innovation, but others like, oh, I don't know what innovation is. But with one picture, with people collaborating, innovation becomes a thing that all people somehow in our organization trade upon, and they understand what it is. And what Patrick will do today, in the keynote, he will share a lot of stories of different companies, how they have innovated their business, figured out new and better ways to separate themselves from the competition. My invitation to you is to look at those examples, look at those stories, and on the back of your mind, always ask, how can I apply this in my company? Not exact same thing what they did, but the principle, what enabled them to see some other opportunity. It will be packed. There will be like 150 slides, and you have to be fully awake. And later on, Patrick will do a workshop where you have the chance, for those who registered over there, you'll have the chance to use the Miro board to brainstorm your own specific business in that canvas over there and explain how that process is. But in the keynote, he will be focusing on how do we approach changing, innovating our business model. How do we approach that? And the Slido link over there is where you can ask questions. Once Patrick finishes, then I will see which are the most upvoted questions, and these are the questions that we will address because we only have 5 or 10 minutes for Q&A. So this is the place to join in the conversation. This is the place to use. But now, I'm super happy that we have Patrick on the stage. Maybe one of the reasons I was already up today before 7 a.m. waiting to come here to find out how, well, especially learning yesterday that he was behind of making this thing happen. I'm excited to learn from people who catalyze things. By catalyze, I mean they bring things to life. Because Osterwalder would have just made a wonderful thing, but his drive to make it to take it to the world is the key over there. And I'm so inspired by that. Why? Because I feel that's one dimension that I want to have more in me. So my invitation to you today, if you see someone on the stage, if you see someone over there, will you somehow feel like, damn good, get inspired and learn what's their mindset, what do they do differently. But now, ladies and gentlemen, with a big, warm, welcoming applause, please welcome on the stage, Patrick van der Pijl, please.
Tere hommikust! Koolitajate. There you go. These are the only words in Estonian, sorry to that. I've never ever in my life had such a wonderful introduction, so I go back home and start listening when I feel bad. So thank you, Harold. So what I want to do, when I had a chat with Gorgi before, then I thought I want to take you on a journey that on the one hand shows what companies are doing at the moment in terms of innovation, because they need to get better or keep getting better all the time, and then create the bridge to your business and how that can be related to business models that are operating or emerging in your industry. So indeed, I have a lot of slides to share. I see the timer right here. And let's take you on a journey, and maybe you feel a little bit overwhelmed, but what Harold said, just let yourself be inspired. You can look back at the slides and so on. So this is me. I put this picture here because I'm one of a twin, so then you're not confused. So he's running our funeral business at home. So there are three things I would like to discuss. So on the one thing, I would like to see what's going on in the market right now with these companies. And then second, I have a few conversations with also one of our clients to really discuss what are these future business models of training that are actually already happening today. And then in the end, the question for you, when you all take that in, okay, so what can I do about that? And how can I learn? And also to be a better trainer, but also a business person, if you run your own business, and see what you can pick up in the next few time. So when you look at what's really going on, I see right now it's really the era of velocity. And when you're not a native speaker, then the question is, in English, like, what is the difference between speed and velocity? Well, we talk about speed all the time when it comes to innovation. But when you talk about velocity, it's really to have a very clear direction of where you would like to go. So for companies nowadays, it is important to understand for themselves, like, in what business are we in, and how can we speed up knowing that we're going into the right direction. And what you see now more than ever before is that this direction is very important, because in the last 3 years, you saw a lot of companies coming back from this whole sense of innovation, because they really needed to look into what is the return on investment. So yes, innovation is important, but how do we make money doing innovation at the same time? So what you see is that with startup scale-ups, there's this notion of innovation, and I think it's a little bit overestimated, because people say it's fun, and it's just this enjoyable ride. It's not fun, it's not always enjoyable, it's hard work, and you try to figure out stuff that hasn't been figured out before. So when you look at innovation, there are so many examples of companies who didn't make it work because they were stuck in processing and executing their current business while forgetting about what was going on. So these are examples that you are all familiar with. But if you think about your business or the clients that you work with, you can also find some of these examples, I think. So what you saw with Blockbuster is that there was this emerging technology, Netflix was popping up, and they were stuck to their traditional rental model. And why? Because they were still got paid for people not returning the videos in time. Whoever had videos rentals? So the other one is when you look at Toys R Us, it is like they forgot to adapt or were not able to adapt while Amazon was beating them big time. And we see similar things happening in the Netherlands. We had a huge chain that was into household appliances, and right now the company is bankrupt. But before, we did a few customer research exercises, and right away when we interviewed people, then they told me, or my team, that they said, like, well, when it comes to household appliances, we go to IKEA. And when you looked at that company, it's what's called Blocker, they never ever thought about that. But it's so simple to go out on the street and ask friends or other people, consumers, like, hey, what are you considering when you are going to buy household appliances? So these are things that failed, and this is a classic one. They got stuck to the keyboards for too long. But what you see today is for businesses that they need to try to understand how can we do a better job, and what does it mean if we are going to disrupt our own business, and should we do that, yes or no? And the answer is very simple, because you need to just change, because if you are not going to disrupt the model, then your competition will disrupt your model. So this is something that is going on, and what you see is that innovation is very difficult. So if you look at success rates, it's not always successful, and you see that 70 to 90% fail, but then the question is why? Well, look at these reasons and try to figure out which one do you resonate with most. So we see on the one hand, there is about insufficient funding. I think you overestimate or underestimate that it takes really considerable money and resources to put innovation in place. It's not like a single exercise. The other thing, what you see is poor execution, but lack of customer insights, that is really important. And I think that's also the through line of this story today, that it is all about knowing who your customers are, knowing what they like, what they don't like, because that's crucial to understand if you need to develop those new services, yes or no. And you see then that what is important is that companies need to increase the speed and the velocity in order to understand what is it that we need to do in order to stay ahead. So we're working now for a large kitchen manufacturing company, and they have no clue what people really like and what they don't like, because they sell their kitchens through dealerships. So they have no information about their clients at all. And then when you think about getting ahead of competition, the question is really, how are you going to do that? And then you see that, I hope this is the right deck, because I see that these are all slides. But let's continue and see if we need to change that. When you look at these key components of the innovation velocity, you see that what companies are struggling with, and I think this is a huge opportunity for your as trainers, is they have to understand their second core business. So core business is what they do, but this is the next core business. They need to be able to generate ideas, to develop new products, to understand the markets, and see if they can keep up and do that tempo. So when you look at innovation velocity, this is crucial, and this is what companies need to pick up. So we researched together with Miro, many people and individuals, about understanding what is about the speed of innovation and how are you trying to make this happen. So what are successful companies look like, and what are less successful companies look like. So when you look at these 10 factors, we asked information workers to rank these and to ask what are the top barriers that you see when it comes to innovation. So think about it for a little bit. Is it about resource allocation? Is it the approval process? Is it about siloed teams? And what was interesting is that this came up as the ranking of the first 4. So they really said it is about speed and efficiency. So imagine this, that the clients that you work with or the company that you work with, it's all about speed, because you need to just develop these new ideas and be way faster on innovation. And then you see that the speed is key, also challenges to work together and collaborate, but also the lack of skills and talent. So this makes an interesting mindset to think, how can you change that? And when you look at top performance companies, then this is an interesting graph that was published by MIT Research. And on the left-hand side, we see now a lot of companies are really looking into dedicating a percentage of their revenue on new innovations. And why is that important? For example, take this kitchen group. They say if we are not growing our revenue, then we need to just, we are staying behind in competition. So they say, if we dedicate a percentage of revenue to innovation, then we know for sure we are taking on this challenge. So that's low or either high. And then the time to market is either slow or fast. And then you see that fast and innovative companies, they have a better performance when it comes to innovation. Makes sense, right? But also when you look at the performance, they outperform others, so they have way more revenue growth. So what I see with companies, they dedicated real time and resources to innovation. They want to speed things up. Why? Because if they're able to do that, they can outcompete all the other companies. So this is something that we need to keep in mind. But now when it comes to really being very effective in innovation, so we wanted to understand, based on these factors, what are the key denominators that determine what companies are way better performers than all the others. So think about what would be your 4 or 5 that would be the key denominators. So you see, is it about communication, how effective you communicate? Is it about the clarity of the strategy? Is it about ways of working? Is it about customer centricity? Is it about roles and responsibilities? So when we started to look into this, we saw that half of the 4 had to do with slow movers, and exactly the other 4 had to do with the fast movers. So that was quite interesting. And when you look at that, these are the slow movers. So these are not decisive or crucial when it comes to the innovation speed. And I find that interesting because I assumed that customer centricity was a crucial part of your innovation velocity, right? But it is not. So I would like to figure out what are the key factors that denominate whether your company is effective and doing a good job in innovation. What I find fascinating about these 4 is, one is really around strategy. So what you see is if you take on innovation, it has to be very clear, like how does this fit in our strategy? So if strategy is not involved, then you can't do a good job on innovation. So we see that every time. So here you see that innovation workers, they more than 2 times say that they're aligning on a shared vision, and strategy is crucial to make innovation happen. And think about maybe innovations that you were part of that you have seen, and at some point they unplugged the innovation exercise because there was no strategic alignment. So number 4 is really about strategy. And here you see also slower innovators, they say the misalignment is the top obstacle to the speed of innovation. So they see if it's unclear and it's inconsistent, then it's way slower. And also if there's no shared vision, they also cannot keep up the pace. So the 4th one was strategy. Then the 3rd one is around technology. So if you see that companies are already adopting and working on technology, then you see that the way that they can speed up is way better. So when you look at the Netherlands, they consider their companies as technology excellent. I'm wondering if that's really true, but that's what they say. So number 3, technology is a crucial differentiator. And then the next one is really about collaboration. So knowing, for example, we work with ING Bank in the Netherlands, and they have all very siloed units, and they hardly cooperate. So when you look at making collaboration work, imagine what you can create when it comes to innovation and time to market. So we see that all the time. So collaboration, I would assume that would be the number 1. But here you see that when companies consider collaboration as a key core value, then more people see that the speed of innovation is way better instead of companies that work in silos. So there's a big opportunity. And the number 1 core strength is about ways of working. And I find that really fascinating. So think about if you are a company and you would like to re-innovate and reinvent yourself, then the key differentiator in order to keep up with that tempo is ways of working. So I think there is a tremendous opportunity for you in the room, knowing how can we help those companies with ways of working, and what is ways of working exactly about. So I will dive deeper into ways of working, and then also look into different business models that we see popping up at the moment. So which design you like better, the left-hand side or the right-hand side? Yeah. No, I learned that from one of the core designers from Miro. They said when you have a black background, then the white doesn't pop up so bad, right? So I thought this black also suits our family business with funerals, and it suits my everything. Yeah, so while we're looking at that, then I thought if we know better what ways of working are about, then we can also understand how we can help companies with that. And I think what is important for you to know is that if you can connect your training capabilities and your business to the core business of those companies, meaning they need to innovate and they need to come to with faster time to market, I think that's crucial, because that's where the total value sits for these type of companies. Yeah, so you will see in the slides, but I started to reach out to a few of my clients, and one of them is Hugo, and Hugo runs the company. It's called Young Capital. And Young Capital is a temporary staff company. It's huge in the Netherlands and a little bit in Europe. And I asked him, so what do you think when it comes to the training business? And then he said, you know, what we see is that as companies need to move so fast, it's crucial that they have access to the right people, to the right skills in a short period of time. So he said, what we are going to do, we're going to offer those training and courses to those people, because that's how we're able to help the companies with getting people with the right skills on board and make that very flexible. So, wonderful. So, I will go here. So it is about the way of working. So what I said, I think that's crucial. So what does the way of working really mean? Is, well, it is about the right processes, methods, tools that define how companies can collaborate, make decisions, and execute, and especially on innovation. So when you look at this, it's about a few things. One is they need to be faster, able to change. So now when you see that AI is popping up, how can they keep on keeping the pace and be flexible and changing way of working? The other one is around hybrid and remote work. I think that is what we've seen in the last few years. And companies need to rethink what that look like. So also with company like Miro, they force people also to come to the office more, because they believe the collaboration happens inside the offices together physically way more than, for example, the digital way of working. And it is about continuous innovation and learning. So what I like is that we always say, you don't know what you don't know. So if you never start, you will never figure that out. So it's crucial to continuously learn and innovate all these new things. And for companies, when it comes to ways of working, it's also important to attract the right talent. Because for the kitchen group, I also see that many capabilities on product, on agile, they don't have those people in-house. So they need to think about skills for these new products that they are taking on, and they don't have that inside their company. And the last one is, how are they then able to scale these kind of best practices? So thinking about ways of working, it is about all these topics, and now we're getting more and more clear on what this means for our business. So when you think about this innovation velocity, there's one key element here, and that's the whole process of how you take this on. So this is an innovation process. You can see many different steps, but what we see is crucial for businesses nowadays are only two things. They need to understand on the left-hand side, are we working on the right problem? So what are the problems that we need to solve for our customers right now? But when we have figured that out, then we need to understand what is the right solution. So this accounts for companies, but also for you. So how do you know what are the key problems that your clients are facing with when it comes to skills, resources, workforce? And once you know that better, how can you deliver something that is very valuable for them, so that they really see that your effort and contribution is crucial. So this slide has a twofold meaning for me and for you. So I'll give you one example. We were asked by Danone to look into a new concept in the US market, because they wanted to bring the Starbucks experience at home. They wanted to create hot foam, cold foam, sweeteners. I mean, those Americans are crazy, right? So this was a project that they want us to take on. So we sent out a survey with videos. So we got the videos in just overnight. And the first thing what I saw, there was a lady on a treadmill. And she was on this treadmill, and she said, like, you know, when I think about new coffee flavors, I'm really interested in adding protein and collagen to my coffee. And we were like, really? No sweeteners, nothing, no foam? Then another guy said, here, look at my morning routine. Here you see how I prepare my coffee, and it includes a protein. And we were like, huh? So looking back at this, we thought, like, we're not working on the right problem, probably. So we need to have a way better understanding of what these customers like, what they don't like, and then see if such a solution would ever help, right? So when it comes to this speed of innovation, it has two reasons. One, it's crucial for companies. They need to understand who customers are, what they like, what they don't like, but it's also important for you to understand what your customers like, what they don't like, and where they need help. So we need to just able to empower teams to work on this innovation effort. So this is going to be like a more intensive set of slides, because I see 7 trends on what business models are popping up in your industry right now. And the way you need to look at this is to try to see, how does this affect my client's business and my business, and how can I deal with that later on? So one thing is that we know for sure, it is shifting, and it's way more to agile, digital, and AI-driven. So shift from the classroom-based, that's of course what you already know, but way more into AR, VR, and data analytics. So before what the expert said, I already told you about Hugo. So he also said, when it comes to the future of training, we need to just educate people in order to make the difference and get the right skills. And then this is Patrick. He's an author, but also a teacher. And he said, my students, they want deeper knowledge, but also continuous knowledge. They don't want to have like a one-day training or a 2-day training. They would like to have something that they continue to look into and improve their skills. And this is Wim. He's responsible for the high school. That's what we call kind of university in the Netherlands, in Utrecht. And he said, what I see is that I see the students like 18 to 20 years who are obligated to study, those will go down. But when it comes to professionals, that's what we want to focus on, but then way more on micro-learning, like small programs, but also skill-based, so not that much on theoretical, etc. So this is a proof that what we see, what they tell us when it comes to learning. And when you look at Miro, that was also interesting, is that when they started out with this whiteboard software, they started to see that it was way more about way of working. So they said, we have a whiteboard space, but they focused on positioning themselves as an innovation company where you help innovation workflows happen inside companies. And that's why they started to grow so fast. So when they start at the beginning, really with only whiteboarding, I remember that I met Andrei. He came from Ukraine, and he was in town in Amsterdam in 2017, and his company was still called Real-Time Board. And when I was later in town, I saw a big sign, Miro, in Amsterdam on a big office, and then he started to establish himself in Amsterdam. And then they started to see like, hey, it's not about a whiteboard space, it is about collaboration. Because we make collaboration work, and that's our next big thing. And then in the third wave, what they see today, it is about the innovation space. So here it was about collaboration, but then more around innovation, because they see innovation is one of the core business processes of companies. And he said, that's what we are going to continuously to build. But then you see that the next phase is really about AI agents. So if you're able to train companies and help them on innovation, then those steps will be more and more automated by AI agents, and that's what they are looking at. So 7 business models around the future of training, and what we see is it is transforming, and this is how they are evolving. So one is around AI-driven personalized training. So what do I mean with that? These are tools that help you to get training that is specifically designed for you. Why? Because it's AI-driven. And if you look at the website and you check out Sana, they have different solutions, AI agents for teams, but also as learning platforms. And it's interesting how they start to really be more and more tailor-made, not only for individuals, but also for teams especially. And what you see when it comes to business models, then these are more subscription models with AI tutors, but also more skill-based on micro certificates. And we see more of those models popping up. Then we see learning as a service, and these are also subscription models. And for example, LinkedIn is an example of that, that is already available, but also Degreed, it's AI learning for a future-ready workforce. And it's also interesting to start to think for yourself that you are aware of these kind of tools, what they can do, and how you can facilitate these kind of tools. I mean, it's impossible for us to create the next Degreed, but it is way more interesting to see how can this help your clients, and you can play a role in this. And then one of the key things here is that it's more like a corporate Netflix kind of model for learning, but we also see pay-for-performance learning popping up. Then we see skill-based learning over degree-based learning, and that's also what Wim from the Utrecht University talked about. So he said, like, individuals are way more interested, not necessarily in a certificate of a prestigious university, but way more around specific skills so that they can showcase that they have these skills and therefore get better jobs or also salary increase. So here you see Google career certificates. I see more and more this is popping up, and it's supported by Coursera. Also these courses here at the bottom, you see all these things pop up with new AI skills. Also Microsoft Learn. I mean, do you see the difference between Google and Microsoft? Very boring. And here you see that these corporate partnerships with different education partners like Coursera or with Microsoft, but also blockchain-based digital credentials. And what do I mean with that? Is that there's a lot of CV explosion. People don't really tell the truth about specific courses or certificates. Now when it's managed by blockchain, it's way more accurate. So this is something that is coming more and more. So I have 3 more. The AI-centered and virtual coach training. So I think about this. So I thought, what is this going to look like? Can't you just design your own AI coach? So I started to put a prompt together. So I thought, I'm the CEO of a specific company. I want a coaching buddy to help me with strategic decisions, leadership, team development, and personal growth. My company focuses on whatever, and I want you to act as my coach by asking critical questions, challenge me, offer new perspectives, and help me reflect. These are my key challenges. And then I said, I want you to guide me with strategic decision-making, setting priorities. And then I started to continue. When I speak with you, I want you to confront with me with my blind spot, ask critical questions, give me strategical approach in each session, and don't help me with only irrational analysis, because people also said I need to be more emotional connected. Okay, I heard it at home also. And let's start with an initial conversation. So this is also for you interesting. You will have access to the slides, and you can use the prompt and start to see, hey, how is this going to help me as an individual? Is it valuable, yes or no? And how can I maybe add those kind of services? I find it interesting when you start to put some questions in, because it's not only about this prompt, but ChatGPT also is learning about your other questions and prompts, etc. So it starts to get better every time. So AI as a service models, and of course also AI-generated content. And at the moment, we are working with a private wealth management company, and we're also putting the whole investment policies that a big guy for 30 years has been writing 5 blogs every week. We are putting that in an AI engine. So you see that learning in that sense is also changing and creates different way of interactions. So 2 more to go. Immersive training with VR, AR. These are more other companies like manufacturing companies or retail companies that take this on. So Striver is an example where they have for leading world enterprises different kind of solutions, also for here retail and for manufacturing. Then this is more for healthcare. It's also VR. You can check that out on the web. And this is more, what I said, dedicated for these industries. And you also see that normally this would be very high cost training, but now when you can offer that through VR, it's way more cost effective for companies. Then community and peer-based learning models. I think that Miro is a good example of that, because this is where your community is, and if we want to train people on Miro, we don't use the classrooms anymore. There are small pieces of a content that you can have access to that is also put together by other people, not necessarily Miro, but other users. So employee-led learning and also community learning platforms. And the last one, I think this one feeds also in what is very interesting for you is it is about how you embed that in the workflow. So the classroom trainings were long ago, but what would it look like if you are able to integrate that into these company workflows and then be relevant with this just-in-time delivery? And one thing is what I see is Slack is a channel that companies are using more and more because you don't know what necessary content is there necessary at the moment. You need to just figure that out. But also chatbots and these kind of things are helping you with that. So this was an overview of these business models, and the last one, so with these models, this AI-powered coaching with daily tools and also learning on the job workflows. So I hope you're still alive. Can you handle? So the question then for you would be, okay, so if you see this, then how can you be still part of that? So what I did in a very short period of time, I just gave you insights on what are companies dealing with at the moment. And you might think, well, innovation is maybe only for large companies, but my company is also supporting for the 3rd time an Enterprise Estonia program where we help companies with growing and innovation. So these are companies with 1 million revenue to maybe 30, 40, 50 million. And everybody needs to adopt and look at this way of innovation. And I think what is crucial for you, if you can tap your training capabilities and connect them to innovation, that's where the key priorities lie for this type of companies. So I think that is something that is truly interesting to see if you can figure that out. But that means also that you have to apply this at the same time. So think about for tomorrow, like whom can you talk to understand what are the key things that they are working on for innovation and what does them bother in terms of speed of innovation, and how can you help delivering better skills or training kind of services. So we need to ask that all the time. We need to figure out, is it the right problem that people want Starbucks coffee at home? So I think forever you can remember, people don't want Starbucks coffee at home. Anyway, so this is what truly important to understand that client problem. And then the question is, how can you help solve that problem? And you might be overwhelmed by all these opportunities when it comes to AI, but it is still very crucial, somebody who understands what that problem is and how you can solve that. So there is a role for you to play. And I thought, one more thing. So we see that the world is changing, we need to do all these things, but what I liked about one person who really made that even way more simple is what is not changing in the next 2 years when it comes to your profession. So I think that the fact that people need to learn will never change, people need more skills will never change, only the packaging and the way it is delivered, that will change. So I shouldn't be worried when I sit in your chair. I would see this as many opportunities, and if you are able to create the bridge for those companies to see like how can you help in helping them to perform on their business challenges, and one of the key ones on innovation, I think you can do a very good job. So if you would like to know more, then I will see you in the workshop. And I would like to thank the technical team by making this work, because if you are instantly able to change a deck and slides, that was truly helpful for me being successful on stage. So thank you very much.
We have 3 minutes for really quick questions. We have several of them. But first of all, do I understand that we as trainers, if we want to take this wave of digitalization, we should find a strategic partner who creates a technology, such as you? You do workshop on basically innovation design thinking. You don't create this AI tool yourself, but you partner up with Miro. So this way they synergize. They create really good content and extra value for Miro, and Miro creates the software and all the tools for them. One wouldn't kind of work without another. So my takeaway here with the whole technological side is because we are not creators of fancy AI models, but the question should be, what are the organizations that should be our strategic partners that really leverage what we do, and they need the content that we do? And even the simple option would be basically just using the platforms who are looking for trainers to teach over there, but the advanced level is someone with those more advanced tools. Yes?
Yeah, so I like that, because you're never able to create this software and stuff yourself. It's impossible, but what is also impossible for these companies to comprehend everything what's going on. So I think you can be the single source of guiding, but also being connected to those companies. I like that.
What would be a way to approach those companies? You had an initial contact with Miro people before, so it was like a, not cold calling, but it was a warm lead. Any advice if someone sees, oh, there's a really awesome company, but this is some big company, I'm a small training company, what would be the approach to approach them?
I think you should not underestimate the type of relationships you have and the knowledge of what skills, training, etc. is about. And those companies don't often have those type of relationships in the companies that you have. For example, with Miro, they have contacts with all the technical people and procurement when it comes to buying software, but they don't have access to the people who are actually using the software. So I think for you, you can really knock on the door of those companies and see like, hey, how can we help my clients with the kind of software and the tools that you have?
So let's have some quick questions. I will show them here as well. In terms of skill set, what are the key skills required in teams who are successful in innovation? Key skills for teams who are successful in innovation.
One is hard to grasp, but it's curiosity. I think it's about curiosity, wanting to learn that what others don't know what they want to learn. I think it's also walking the extra miles. So it's way more easy to just execute your day job, but if you want to innovate, you will be disappointed. You need to take extra routes, etc. So that's quite complicated. And I think anything around design thinking, this would be like a key topic that I would take on. So this has empathy, understanding customers, prototyping, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, the human side as well. Next one. Everything is very digital. Is there still any space for in-person non-tech trainings, or that's a previous century? People still need real-life connection.
Yeah, I think this is a topic what pops up a lot of the time. And I think that when it comes to you as a professional, you should have a vision about that. When do you believe it's very useful to be on the tech side of things, and on the other hand, to be on the non-tech and the physical side of things. So when it comes to leadership training, why would you sit in a digital space and behind your screen? So there is a huge space still to do things physically, but you need to be clear about that. How's that going to work and how it's going to benefit people? And what I like about that is when you look, for example, at the Miro room, they have one discovery space, and in that space you're not able to use any software or a mobile phone, you can't take pictures. So they also create a space where you're not allowed to use even technology.
It was this one. Boom. Okay. What kind of possible innovations are there in your business? This is funeral business. Funeral business was joke or a real one?
No, it's real.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a growing market, I assume, right?
Yeah, so I think that...
That's like Jeff Bezos' thing that probably unless they become
No, I think that
superhuman.
what people don't understand when it comes to the funeral business is that it's very traditional, and once it comes to a loved one that is deceased, then you have 4 days in order to arrange the funeral. And then when people come with ideas to create a casket or to color it or whatsoever, you only have a few hours to make that happen. So you see that innovation is not really happening. There are also different ways how you can, sorry to say, dispose bodies. So you can throw it in space, you can implode it, etc. But that's not really comfortable when you would like to take care of your loved one. So I think when it comes to innovation, the funeral business is very difficult.
I don't want to leave that as a final question. So, what if a client does not know how to verbalize their need? So how do you go out there? How do you get the clients to open up what they actually need and see what is behind their initial kind of requests for training? How do you really dive and understand that?
Yeah, I think this is the best question. So that is very hard because people don't know what they don't know. So what we do often is that we do a client safari, and just we start to work with people and then see how they operate and behave in their business, and then started to see patterns and start to learn because they don't know by themselves. And I had a very good example about that. It was Karen, and she worked at Intuit, and Intuit is a software company on accounting in the US. And she said, what I started to do, I start to sleep with my clients.
Take some notes here.
Yeah. And I thought, what does she really mean? But then she said, you know, like when I look at entrepreneurs, then when do they do their bookkeeping? They don't do that during the day because they don't have time. So they do it in the evening and during the weekend. So she said, why do we have these customer services during the day? It doesn't help them. So when she said, when I really go out with these entrepreneurs and go to bed with them, that's what she literally said, then she knows way better what's going on. And we did also something with a butcher shop in the Netherlands. So this lady said, I'm competing with supermarkets. So how am I going to figure out what I need to do? And I said, well, you're not sure if you compete with supermarkets. So we started with her brothers, sent out a Facebook page and said, we're going to cook with your family for free, and 200 people signed up. So they had 15 visits where they go out to these families, start cooking for them, and what they started to notice, they compete not with supermarket, but with the hockey club, soccer, ballet, etc., because families don't have time. And that's really mind-blowing. So I think that this customer safari, that's the key crucial thing. That's what we are excited about, and that's a way to get to know your customers better, but also know how you can do a better job.
So you're the competitor that will take you out of business is not the other company that does the same thing, but possibly some totally other industry company that kind of serves the problem. But thank you, Patrick. Patrick will be back for a workshop as well, and will be hanging around. So if you want to, we have nööbist kinni võtma is an expression in Estonian. You'll figure it out what it is during the break. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.